Look, it's important that at least the stream starts with the Bible up there, but forgot to add myself. Hey, everybody, how are you doing? Starting the week off on stream tonight because last night was national championship. Me being the Notre Dame fan that I was, apprehensive that we were gonna see a repeat of 2012 or possibly the game against Clemson in the college football playoff a few years ago. At least we didn't get routed, right? Made a game of it at the end. I was worried we were losing control, but came out, hit Ohio State right in the mouth. They tied it up. They played pretty much a perfect first half. And in the end came up short, but I'm not mad about it. We didn't have the same amount of physical talent collected, and yet we were still competitive. It was good seeing them out there, good seeing how they conducted themselves, and we made some plays of our own. And me, who's been kind of a Riley Leonard detractor most of the season, really has really been impressed with him this last stretch of games, and then last night, really just how he led his team. Marcus Freeman, great coach. That's me getting the football talk out of the way, and then moving right into the show proper. My name is Stuart Davis, a flawed man of God. I am your humble host here on this channel, Flawed Man of God. I am a humble parishioner at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I'm not a pastor, not a biblical scholar. I haven't been to seminary. I'm not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm here to do is talk about God, talk about Jesus, talk about the Holy Spirit, talk about the Bible, talk about Christianity, talk about a wide variety of different topics, issues, and current events, and give you my perspective on them. One that I think is reflective of your average Christian guy. I've been a Christian all my life, 42 years, non-denominational Protestant. I don't subscribe to any particular doctrine or denomination. I'm just in the Word daily, trying to do it better each and every day. Sometimes I'll get it right. Sometimes I get it wrong. No matter what, you're watching this stream, if you're hearing my voice, you can count on getting my honest takes on whatever it is we're talking about. So if you are somebody who is new to Christianity or interested in hearing more about Christianity, maybe you're right there at the cusp and you're trying to talk yourself into going, you know that there's something missing in your life, and you really think that it's Jesus, but there's apprehension, there's anxiety, there's fear, there's doubt. There's a lot of things kind of holding you back because it is a big step. Some people can make that leap, once they decide. Other people want to dip their toes in the water. Other people have had issues with trust before. Well, folks know that there are bad actors everywhere, and there doesn't exclude people in the faith and in church. And you're worried about that. It's a big deal putting that much of yourself into something. So maybe you're here for some encouragement. Maybe you're here for some motivation. And if that's what you need, if that's what you're looking for, get past anything else you get into this show. We'll get to it right now after you had to listen to me talk about Notre Dame and listen to the music. But now, now that we're here, look, if you're honestly, diligently, obediently, humbly pursuing Christ, you're on the right track. I'm rooting for you, praying for you. I want to see you succeed. The people in the chat, the people listening, all of Christendom is rooting for you and praying for you because we all care about it. That one more soul, one more victory. It's important. Everyone is important because every one of you, every one of us was important to Christ when he got on that cross. So we're hoping for you, praying for you. And not only that, the heavenly host, they want to see you make it too. We all want to see you accept Christ. Be up there in heaven, hanging out, Glad to see as many people as possible up there. And look, maybe that's all you needed. Maybe you need to go but I ask, maybe stick around if you can. Come back when you have a chance. Hang out with us, kind of get an idea of, just talking about the faith. And maybe add in some of your own thoughts into things. If you're already a Christian and you just enjoy Christian conversations and discussions, welcome as well. We run this very similar to a Wednesday night study group or a Sunday school, small group oriented. It's a small group. We got some good numbers, folks milling in right here at the beginning. I'm seeing new and old names alike. Well, mostly old. You're all old, actually, in the chat. At this point, they're all old faces now to me. But we'd love to have you join us, because it is, there's usually not more than 10 of us in here at a time. So that gives you ample opportunity to say your piece, speak your mind, and be part of the show. One that I encourage you to be, whether you are already a Christian or one who those folks at the beginning I was speaking to, who might just have questions, who might just be unsure, might just want to hang out with us. It makes the show better. Your participation makes the show better. I'm just the guy who hosts it and does the talking on the mic. What you guys add in the chat, that can really steer this show. Not as much as the word, but steer it nonetheless. So just get in that chat. I promise if you put something in that box, I'll read it and respond to it. So tell me what you agree with or disagree with. Where do you think I'm right? Where do you think I'm wrong? What unique insight, perspective, or experience have you had that maybe we haven't talked about? Or maybe you want to add on to something somebody else said. Share your opinion. Ask questions. I can't promise that I'm going to have the answers. In fact, I'll say there's a likelihood I don't have the answer for you. But we can at least talk about your question. And maybe me, one of those folks in the chat, can point you in the right direction. And with that said, how's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? I see it. Like, I love popping in here, and when the chat starts while I'm doing my intro, just seeing familiar faces. I like seeing new ones too, but just seeing folks filling in and at least stopping by and saying hi. Alex Moore hitting that notification. Veritex, love that YouTube knew when I refreshed to auto load this. Gonna be late though. Hey, just don't be late for dinner. Alex saying finally snowed here after 4 years. Well, at my parents' house, so it's nice outside. I love the snow, and I'm glad you finally got some. I saw pictures of Louisiana down there. It looks different for that area. I don't know if that's where you're at. I don't know where you're at, but I'm glad to see that you're getting some snow and that you're getting to enjoy it. It is still cold here, but no snow, which brownie face, but at least it means the roads are safe and people are able to travel in relative safety, because something that people can't do south of the Mason-Dixon line is understanding and comprehend snow in general. Not all of us. I like driving in snow. I like just like it. Enjoy it. I enjoy off-road driving. I love the driving in the snow. It's all fun for me, but it genuinely terrifies some people, a fair number of people, and that's never fun to get them mixed in large numbers, because sometimes you still have to go out and get groceries or go to work or do something, and that means getting out on the road and you're nervous, your anxiety levels up, prone to mistakes. So but yeah, no snow in the forecast so far. It's supposed to warm up over the course of the next week. It's supposed to warm up. We might even see 50 degrees at some point next week. Jury's still out on that though. Matt Felty is here. What's going on, sir? Alias is here. Good evening to you. Thad the Man is here. Well, yesterday was a great day. Trump was inaugurated and issued executive order ordering the Bears to hire Ben Johnson, and it worked. Well, we'll find out how he does. We'll find out how he does that, but I'm glad you had a good day. MR is here. Hey, guys. Hey, what's going on, MR? Haven't seen you in a while. Always good to see you pop in. Alias, thank you, Mr. President. Thad the Man said, crazy Bishop S2. No such thing. That lady up there preaching, that's a LARP. We all know this. We know the rules behind that. Women can't be pastors. Women can't be bishops. Women can't be priests. You can be a nun, but that's a service role, right? And so her getting up there and, basically what went on there was about what you'd expect and pretty much gives you at least one example of why perhaps God decided for the role of priest to be relegated to the men. Emmanuel Soria, we're so back. Drill, baby, drill. Odessa is gonna be busy. All them old, and I haven't really been paying attention to it because I used to work in the rail industry, and back then, around we were doing fracking. There was crude galore, so much that they were leasing out rail cars for $1,400 a month for one rail car just to store it on train tracks. So they got to pay for storage and everything. But just for the rail cars, they had companies who had more tank cars than they needed, subleasing them out because the oil companies would overpay because they just needed a place to put them. And this was back in the 2008, 2009 time period. It was just crazy. And then things fell off. And then things got active again. I don't know where they stood. I haven't been there in about almost a decade now. I've been out of the rail industry, but I miss it sometimes. It's a really cool industry to be in. If anybody's ever looking for a career path that's kind of small community, it goes obviously coast to coast, all the way from Mexico up to Canada too. So it's all over the place. But if you're in the community, you pretty much know you pretty much run into everybody at some point. That's like I said, I miss it. Most of the corporate stuff is centered in Houston, because Petrochem is big in there. Chicago, because I guess that's just where a lot of the railroad companies decided to make their headquarters years and years ago. It's just fun. Everything moves at a slower pace. The trains still got to move, but everything's at a slower pace than what basically the rest of the world is operating at. Look, the last I heard, BNSF, Burlington Northern Santa Fe, their online their internal systems were pre-DOS, and we're talking like 2019. Still operating pre-DOS, not 2019, 2017. It's amazing. The rules that they go by, the rules of interchange, go back over 100 years. They'll go back into the 1800s. MR says, good man, been working my booty off last few months. Haven't been able to make it regularly because I'm usually still at it, but glad to be here. Hey, look, it's good. Glad to see you when I can, sir. Glad to see you when I can. Emmanuel said, hopefully everyone is enjoying this awesome week. I know I am. By the way, the El Paso Bridge was closed almost immediately after Trump took office. Just goes to show you that, yes, it was that easy. Thanks, Kamala, for all your hard work. Wow. Interesting how things happen. Matt Felty said it was under freezing since Friday here in Denver. Finally got up to 40. I'm surprised it's colder here in Virginia than it is in Colorado. You'd think it'd be colder out there near the mountains and everything. And you're pretty close. Does Colorado count as part of Big Sky Country? I know y'all touch like Wyoming and whatnot. Y'all touch Wyoming? I can't remember. I mean, it's cold out there. It gets cold out there on the plains. And then in the mountains. I said, oh, was sub-zero at single digits a lot? Yeah, we haven't gone sub-zero yet. We haven't gotten to single digits. We've been in the teens. It's about as cold as it gets here. No, never met John Henry, though. The Ballad of John Henry is one of my favorite Johnny Cash songs. Period. Oh. How do you get into the rail industry? Anyways, I'd be interested in if I had a chance. I don't know exactly. I kind of fell into it from my Army contacts. Might just worth applying. Right? I know you spend a lot of time on the road. It would be interesting for you, especially with your experience doing OTR, that being a train driver, those guys can make bank. And look, I'm not a union guy, but their union is solid. Now, the drawback has always been it's not very, in my opinion, family friendly. Because the company can tell you, look, we're moving you from here to here, moment's notice. They don't care. You don't have, at least it used to be, you didn't have any say in the matter. They're like, hey, we need a driver here, so you're going to go here. But if you're a person who doesn't have deep roots in and is willing to get up and spend a lot of time away from family, driving a rail car or driving a train, a locomotive, is very lucrative. Very lucrative. Matt Felty, back to below freezing, teens and singles for a couple more days. Train travel is more romantic than air. Okay. Getting a little far there. Now, traveling by rail through the public, sure. But look, you're talking to somebody who flew military, where it's a little bit more free, and man, ain't nothing like flying. Matt Felty said COBOL and basic are hack proof now, too buggy and no coders. Yeah, that's the funny thing. It's I don't remember many times running into issues because the systems were down. It was usually because somebody screwed up. The big thing, I could go on and on about, Hunter Harrington. I actually can't remember. It's been a while. He gutted things at Canadian Pacific. He gutted things at CSX and sent a lot of people packing that he shouldn't have. Forced retired people early before they could fully get their pensions. It was not a good sight. And basically, you had yard masters, which is a guy running an entire interchange at some of CSX's major interchange points that were 25, 26 years old. They just weren't experienced enough to handle that stuff, and they were just throwing, they were just problem after issue that we had. And CSX said, oh no, and things are fine. And they were like, well, what about here? And then they throw a bunch of resources there from other places, and they'd be like, okay, we fixed this place. Of course, now you got all those other issues now because nobody's looking at it. It was bad. It was bad, but you know. Fortran is big in banking and military. I've never heard of that. Stu should probably lobby against price floor on rail. I think that rail travel should be cheaper. It's too expensive, and it's just slower than air travel. Alex said, sports ball, Stu. I'm a new Bills fan now for the next week. Lol. Well, I'm a Chiefs fan, so no. And Mar said, went snowboarding last night, 3 degrees. Man, that's not much of a slope. 3-degree slope. How did you get anywhere? All right. That's enough of the small talk. I know. We're all here for the real reason, and that is to continue our study in Proverbs. We have spent the last 2 nights, of course, one got cut short, and I went on a rant, getting through 5 Proverbs, and we were on a roll there for a while. We'd gone through a couple in a week, a couple of chapters. 28 started off slow, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. You guys know what I say. We're going to take as long as we need to take to digest what we can in the show, but we try to get about 5 done. And I think it take us 2 episodes to do 5 last time. So we'll get started on this and go from there. All right. So we'll pick up at 6. Proverbs 28, verse 6. Better is, better is the poor who walks in his integrity than he who is crooked and two-faced, though he is rich. And this is a lot of us, how we should shoot to be in a nutshell. All the time. It's not bad to be rich. It's not a sin to be rich. David was rich. Abraham was rich. There's people of means. Job was rich. Rich, then very poor, and then very rich again. That's not the problem. The problem is, how did you get those? How did you get that wealth? Did you do it by cheating, by fraud, lying to people, stepping on people on your way to get there? Or maybe you just came into it by honest means and you just treat everybody like dirt. You think it makes it better than makes you better than others. Maybe you think that gives you permission to be whatever you want to be to anybody. They just need to accept it because you got money. Now, there are definitely people out there who act that way. I hope none of you act that way. I hope you're all rich. But it all comes down to what really matters in life. What is the value on things in life? And to be honest with you, possessions is very low. They might be a way to measure your actions in life. And it doesn't necessarily mean you did the right things. You can cheat and be rewarded with possessions and wealth, or you could be honest, diligent, hardworking, invest well, and be rich. Could have just inherited it. Could have just won a lottery ticket or had a winning lottery ticket, won the lottery. Your integrity, your principles, how you treat other people, how you work to honor God, how you work to obey him. And do you love God? Do you love your neighbor? And that involves more than just saying, I love them. Yes, I love them. It involves all the actions that come along with it. It's more than just saying, oh, I feel like I like all these people. Yeah, but how much do you like them? How much do you care? To the point where you could have nothing in life or very little as far as material wealth. But if you have integrity, you are, to me, or as I would say it, more rich than a person with no integrity and no kindness or love in their heart, even though they might have anything they could ever want in life. This one doesn't take a whole lot of breaking down. A lot of that's me soapboxing something that we probably all know and understand, but just to put it out there and give the verse its due, because sometimes I don't think I do that for verses because I don't get them as much. That one was pretty easy to go over. 7. He who keeps the law of God and man is a wise and discerning son, but he who is a companion of gluttons humiliates his father and himself. I'm just going to read ahead. I'm just reading ahead a little bit to see if we can just roll through this pretty well, because this kind of relates to the first or verse 6. 8. He who increases his wealth by interest and usury, excessive interest, gathers it for him who is gracious to the poor. He who turns his ear away from listening to the law of God and man, even his prayer is repulsive to God. He who leads the upright astray on an evil path will himself fall into his own pit, but the blameless will inherit good. The rich man, and we're going to go a little bit further. Maybe we'll go to 15 tonight. The rich man who is conceited and relies on his wealth instead of God is wise in his own eyes, but the poor man who has understanding because he relies on God is able to see through him. Okay, so we just went through, we did 6, and then we just did 7 through 11. And 7 through 11 all keep up with that same theme in 6. Godliness, goodness, obeying the principles that God tells us to live by and instructs us to live by. Those are good and wholesome and have real meaning and weight. Sorry, something was dinging. Have real meaning and weight on what defines us as people. What's going on, Jenny? How you doing? And if we exhibit integrity, love of our fellow man, obedience to God, reverence for him, things associated like that. Fairness in our dealings with other people. Charity. That's all stuff that that's all stuff we're commanded to do. That's all stuff that when you look at somebody and see that, a good person will say, "Nice." That's that's what it's all about. But on the other hand, what do we associate it with? Evil behavior, wickedness. And what we're seeing here really is the financial aspect of that and the lawlessness uh, part of that. So we were talking about someone who is rich but crooked and two-faced. Yeah, they got money, but how'd they get it? Or what do they do now that they got it? And so in 7 we go, he who keeps the law of God and man is wise and discerning son, but he who is a companion of gluttons, so associate gluttony with food, excess, um, gluttony, hedonism, that kind of stuff is stuff that our buddy Emmanuel Osorio would say of Slanesh in the Warhammer lore. It's usually stuff that you see with folks who are wealthy. He who is a companion of gluttons humiliates his father and himself. It's not a good, you give your family name a bad reputation. And you could take it as, your father, your grandfather, or your father in heaven. It's humiliating. You're not there to be a hanger on or a coattail rider of folks who do nothing but consume. He who increases his wealth by interest and usury gathers it for him who is gracious to the poor. Now this and another thing here in 8 and then in 10 have very much a beatitude sound to them. He who increased the wealth by interest and usury, excessive interest, gathers it for him who is gracious to the poor. Look, loan sharking, predatory lending, that kind of stuff, extortion. That might get you a lot of money. They might buy you expensive toys. But what you're really doing is setting it up for the real ones, the Christians who will inherit the earth. Right? You're going to end up losing out. In the end. Because you can't take it with you. And one of the things that God promises us in the end is justice. And we'll get to 10 in a minute, but as 8 and 10 very much sounded like sound similar to Beatitudes. This one not as much as 10. They still just kind of ring kind of Sermon on the Mountish to me. 9, he who turns his ear away from listening to the law of God and man, even his prayer is repulsive to God. Well, yeah. Yeah. You do evil things, which we're all guilty of, right? We're all guilty of sin and whatnot, but there's no repentance in your heart and you ignore it. Why do you think God wants to listen to what you have to say? If you're ignoring him so blatantly, so crassly, why does how do you think your prayer to him comes across? We're all wretched and wicked people in many of our deeds. That is due in large part to weakness. Or you could say all of it's due to weakness. And there should be a desire to do better, an understanding that you're doing wrong and you need to improve. Remorse, repentance, right? If you're ignoring it altogether, and you can see it. And one of the most frustrating things sometimes to see is woke preacher clips on Twitter. And you've seen, especially when me and Eric roll on, we're going through our bit pieces toward at the back when the show was very new. I would pull some from him. I don't know. Eric had good ones as well. I don't know if he was pulling them from, but I still follow woke preacher clips on Twitter. And it's hard seeing what some people will do using the pulpit and they put on the disguise of a godly person in order to say, "Oh, the stuff that you want to do, it's okay. It's okay." All those people who want to tell you it's wrong, they're they're just hateful. They're jealous. They're whatever. To the point where you see there are people who go up there pretending to be priests who will say, "I don't like what God says here." And so we don't talk about this thing. God should, or God has changed his mind. If God's been the truth from the beginning, why would he change his mind? God does things differently at different times. That's different from changing your mind and changing what is real. But they get up there. They get up there. And the good news is for the most part, it's small, it's in very small churches that are dying off. And you'll see a lot of them, a lot of those churches, buildings are up for sale because they can't afford to keep the lights on anymore. And it's one thing it's a sad thing if you're a small church struggling to do the right thing. It's another thing when you're a church that's deliberately leading people astray. And we'll get to that in the next verse. Trump said, or MR given the barf sign at usury. Yeah, nobody likes usury, right? Veritek said Trump didn't seize power. He was voted in. The executive order thing is a repeal of what Biden did to Trump's policies when he came in. So it's a net zero, at least on paper, for much of it. Or Alex saying that Veritek should have added a sarcasm sign to that. Emmanuel said the Bible already gave advice to the Eldari, but too bad they didn't listen. I think that Warhammer steals a little bit from everybody, but a lot of the war, not 40K, but Warhammer, and maybe some of 40K takes Tolkien tropes away. MR, the sarcasm sign is the /S, meaning you were being sarcastic based on what you said. Yeah. um, what was I gonna say? I don't know. Oh yeah, I was talking about they take stuff from Tolkien tropes and Tolkien, world building stuff from Lord of the Rings or whatnot, but they don't realize that so much of what Tolkien established with all of his lore, because he was a very devout Catholic, um, is biblical principles, uh, biblical mentality, biblical worldview. Where were we at? Oh, there he is. MR said, when people joke, y'all need Jesus, it's basically this psalm. There's a lot of, it's basically, there's a lot of places in the Bible. But yeah. MR says, how does that satanic stuff get on the pulpit? It creeps me out. Okay, so um, we don't talk about it as much here as I used to, but you'll hear a lot of you'll have to traditional versus modern. And what my take on when I hear modern or traditional is the same understanding that we have had for the most part since the early church, since the Old Testament, since the foundation of the creation of the universe by God, in my opinion. And modern is, well, things have changed since um, society has changed since Roman occupied Jerusalem, since the New Testament was written, and there's a lot of things that um, don't apply anymore, or need to be re-understood, or we need to we need to change things based on what people will accept because of culture. A lot of this modernization, this very radical modernization, has happened in the last 50 years, 50 or 60, or last 60 years or so. It coincided with the sexual revolution in the 60s. Now, there was stuff going on before that, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories about it, but when you see it in the mainstream, because so much of those changes have to do with how the culture um, and how society views um, sex, sexual nature. You can add social justice in some of these other cases or whatnot, but the idea, and some of this has been um, was ideas either intentionally or as a side effect from communists trying to basically undermine Western democracies during the Cold War. But a lot of new thoughts and new ideas, and they seep in, and it's like the roots of a weed that comes in, and it's very subtle, and it comes, and you don't really notice it at first. And maybe some of the older folks will be like, wait a minute, or some of the more ornery um, folks will say that no, that's not right. But everyone's like, nah, they're not hurting anybody. And it's just over time, desensitization to it, and the guilt trips, and the desire to not push people away from God, not understanding that by your actions you're doing it. Until you have the way the United Methodist Church looks now, the um, Episcopal Church, or the majority of the Anglican Church these days. You have the ELCA Lutherans. You have the United Church of Christ up north. They've all become very affirming of sexual sins. All affirming of abortion. All taking cues from social justice talking points or ideals. And so that's how you get somebody up there who doesn't belong up there at all, barking at the president because she thinks it's her opportunity to browbeat him. But that's how it gets up there. You hate and you hate to see it. And I've been in that situation. I've basically been in a situation where I've seen the foundations of it starting to take root. So I've seen people see it and get as far away as possible from it. And I've seen other people ignore it and see other people think that they can manage it. And other people make excuses for it. And I've also seen people pushing it. It hurts. And it hurts because to see it happen. Because it's only a matter of time before those bending of principles, those reinterpretations of truths become wider and more distant from God's commands until you have a church that looks nothing like the church in spirit, but oftentimes will wear the trappings as if it gives them authority. Emmanuel said, I saw that fake Catholic, super embarrassing. No, it's not a chaplain. It's not chaplain in there. No, and like somebody else, yeah, like Thad corrects earlier, that wasn't a Catholic church. A lot of people give Catholics a lot of grief for some of the things that they allow the lay people to support, and even some of their own priests. There are no women priests in the Catholic clergy. And they are still very strict on that. So no, she wouldn't have been up there. Now that's not to say that Father James Martin wouldn't have been up there saying the exact same things, because he would have. Let's see. Jenny says, missing you on God Logic streams, Mr. Felty. I still get notifications. I haven't listened to his show in, over a year. MR gotten yourself into trouble on X? Nope. Slash S is much like slash pole is a big slash S. Alex saying Age of Sigmar has some Tolkien drippings for sure. Definitely. '60s would be 64 years. Look, stop fact checking me, Veritex. Well, I'm glad you're in here, popping in here to say hi and listening in, Jenny. Both you and Matt. MR said, well, that's a good call. I see desensitization in a lot of things. It is. A lot of it comes down to desensitization. And a lot of it is preying on people's trust. They hear They hear something from somebody who they trust to lead them spiritually. And they're like, okay, well, I guess that's it because they're the expert, right? They went to school for it. They obviously know more than me. And look, there are definitely people out there. I've run into them on Twitter and in real life who think that just because they went to seminary, they know more about faith than you do. That dude who just graduated from Cincinnati Bible College or MacU is smarter than Elder Bob. That Masters of Divinity or BS in theology that you got makes you smarter than some man who has been earnestly and tirelessly studying the Bible his entire life and understands the spirit and the theme of it and has listened to his preacher and elders over the last 50, 60 years of his life or longer. They're out there. And they think that just that certification, that piece of paper, that graduation is a license to correct everyone who disagrees with them. And that nobody else is qualified to respond or object. Well, you just don't know what you're talking about. Well, did you actually know this? No, I've never heard that. And I've only been in kind of studying and getting into this as long as I've been doing the stream, a little bit before that. It didn't take me long to see that. Emmanuel said the perfect example was the years of passive people accepting everyone in the church without actual standards from the Bible. Well, yes, from a membership standpoint or from a leadership standpoint. And obviously you want to accept everybody into the church because you want everybody to hear the word, whether they are an unrepentant sinner or not. They need to hear it. Eventually, maybe one day it clicks. But when it comes down to membership and participation and representing the church, yeah, you got to gatekeep that. You got to be very strict on that gatekeeping. This is why I don't have a problem with different congregations that have closed communions, because communion is, some might call it a sacrament, some call it a commandment from God, whatever. If you're a Christian, you take communion seriously. It is one of the things that God demands you take seriously. So you got to gatekeep it. You got to hold the standard. The alphabet. Memar says, hey, I'm Catholic and I tolerate all you liberal heathens in here. Okay, stop. It's not a liberal place. Slash sarcasm, MR. Veritex said Antioch Declaration went back to World War I or post World War II, which would be what, 47? Yeah, but where did we really start seeing it was the 60s. Matt Felty said Cincinnati Bible College closed 2019, by the way. No, I remember when it did because there's a lot of people around here, pastors and non-pastors, went to Cincinnati Bible College. So it was a big deal when they closed. A lot of people were sad to see it happen. Slash poll. Stop. All right. So that was all leading up to 10. All leading up to verse 10. He who leads the upright astray on an evil path will himself fall into his own pit, but the blameless will inherit good. See what I say? What I mean when I say it sounds like a beatitude? The first part's talking about wolves, and we're worrying about wolves with people who preach to lead people astray, either because they're intentionally trying to undermine the church, or they want so bad to be right and for their moral compass, or for God's moral compass to align with theirs. Or maybe I should say it, God's truth, which is the truth, God's truth, to align with their personal moral compass. And so by doing so, they stretch the truth or change the truth to match what they want to get across. Like I said, you have to have the humility to understand that what you want to be right might not necessarily be what God has made right. And you have to have the humility to be willing to change. Because you're not the smartest person. You can make mistakes. You could have the wrong outlook on things. Happens to all of us. But the moment you start trying to convince other people to go your way instead of God's way, you're setting yourself up. It's not a good ending. But the blameless will inherit good. The rich shall inherit, or the meek shall inherit the earth. Those who, well, we won't get into the Beatitudes because we're not there yet. But if you're wanting to read ahead, the Sermon on the Mount is beautiful. Beautiful part. I mean, the single greatest sermon in human history, given by Jesus Christ himself. And the Beatitudes were part of that. That's, you ask me, want to see, if the honest truth, the best thing to go back in time to see anything, to be there and listen to Jesus preach. Greater than all of Ecclesiastes? Of course. Of course. Well, and we'll find out just how good Ecclesiastes is in a few, in about a week or so. Maybe 2. Still got a ways. All right. Where were we at? Okay. 11. The rich man who is conceited and relies on his wealth instead of God is wise in his own eyes, but the poor man who is understanding because he relies on God is able to see through him. Again, you think you're right. You convince yourself you're right. You think you got everybody fooled. Everybody needs to see things your way. But a man who sees things the way God has commanded him to see things and absorb the wisdom that God has given to him can see right through you. All right, should we go to 15? Let's keep going. It's only an hour in. We got another. We can get these. We can get back. We can get to 15 probably before an hour and 30. 12. When the righteous triumph, there is great glory and celebration. But when the wicked rise to prominence, men hide themselves. Yeah. Are we talking about good men create good times create weak men create hard times create good men? Are we in that cycle? Is that what this is describing, that cycle? Um, this is more action and consequence. You do the right thing as a society, as a leader, there's glory to be had. But when the wrong thing is done, disaster strikes. Men hide themselves. There's a lot of U.S. Congress in Proverbs, Veritax, and not on the good end of Proverbs. And I'm not saying that just from the squad, but I'm also saying that because of the more Majorie Taylor Greens out there too. Bunch of politicians. Sell your soul for one corn chip. Not their own, yours. They'll sell theirs too, but for more. That was like I did this a while or a few months ago. I think it was Jonah Goldberg was tweeting about something. He's rah rah. Let's get into another war. And like, look, he is more than willing to send you to die for a war that he himself is not willing to fight for. But he will support it and plead for us to fight it all day long. He doesn't want it to cost him a thing. "13. He who conceals his transgressions will not prosper, but whoever confesses and turns away from sins will find compassion and mercy." This is there's a good practical example that I think we can all think of. You try to hide the things that you were doing wrong. Yeah, I don't like Bobert either, Matt. I don't like any of them. I don't like any of them. I don't trust any of them. You're doing the wrong thing, covering it up. It's not going to help. It's not going to pay out for you in the end, because eventually it is going to catch up to you. Doubling down, or if everybody knows you did a bad thing, everybody is telling you you've done a bad thing. Everybody's telling you that they know that you did a bad thing. Denying it's not going to help you. It all comes to a head eventually. Are you going to still be in denial then? Whoever confesses and turns away from his sins will find compassion and mercy. There are always going to be people who write you off forever because they lack compassion and mercy themselves. But a lot of people out there want to root for somebody to pick themselves up, to just be sorry and say, and just admit, just have that moment of humility and honesty and want to be better and redeem themselves. There's people out there. Those are you. In fact, you might find new people. I was reading earlier about Steve-O from Jackass, who I always thought was kind of a scummy human being, and always somebody I thought was going to be dying young. The man's been trying to clean up his act so much that he has cut people from who have helped make him famous out of his life because they're not trying to clean up their act. And Steve-O was talking about how he doesn't talk to Bam anymore. Bam was somebody he did his show with, who looked awful the last time I saw him or saw a picture of him. I'm rooting for him. I never liked him, but seeing that, I'm on his side. Kat Von D, if we want to take a Christian, and I don't know if I can't remember if Steve-O did anything with Christianity, but just kind of create, just trying to clean up, just live a cleaner life. Kat Von D could not stand her. She gave all the cringy, witchy, emo vibes out there. I'm a bad girl, blah, blah, blah. Saw her that she was baptized. Now, y'all saw it on stream. What a great thing behind you. Always thought Russell Brand, not that funny, little kind of annoying. I want him to succeed so bad in his conversion. I know it's messy, and I know it's kind of it's a little on the edge. But I am fans of these folks. I am rooting for them, openly rooting for them. You'll find people who, even though maybe you were deceptive in who you portrayed yourself to be, maybe you were struggling with things that you didn't want other people to know that you struggled with. Sometimes personal life gets out there. Sometimes the mistakes you make catch up to you. Sometimes people find out. You're going to shame them for knowing, and maybe they shouldn't be so judgmental, but you calling them out ain't the tactic. Your job is to fix yourself. And one of the things that's hard to see is somebody unable to get to the point of humility. It's so and I know it's frustrating when you have difficulty getting there yourself. Emmanuel said, yes, we always give people a chance to redeem themselves. Not everybody, but people do, right? We always give people a chance to redeem themselves and actually follow up on it, unlike these heretics like that OnlyFans chick who says is Christian. Yeah. Well, again, we go into, are you just wearing the label, or are you trying to live the life? Now, I think that donating the money would be a great grand gesture. That's not necessarily a requirement of her, but changing a lot of her lifestyle that she doesn't seem like she has. I don't care how much she gives. I don't care how much she gives, because again, it's material wealth, right? What I want to see is the change in her behavior, the change in her heart and in her soul. That's the part that matters. And you can say up and down that you are new, or you are reborn, and you've changed. But if your actions don't reflect it, if your heart doesn't reflect it, you have not changed. I know a lot of people are hung up on that. I'm not hung up on that as much as I'm hung up on how your actions reflect that. Veritex said, for the world to know the truth, there can be no greater proof than to live the life. Live the life. Bringing folks to Jesus is the call by word and deed. Yeah. There we go. I knew you were quoting something. Veritax, there's no love that's quite as pure. There's no pain we can't endure. If we live the life, live the life. Be a light for all to see. For every act of love will set you free. I know that's a song, but I don't know the lyrics. I don't know the melody. Yes, change the heart are more important than as like the man trying to buy his way into heaven by talking to Jesus. And I like to tell the people that the story ends with, or the interaction with Christ ends with the rich young ruler walking away sad. And we'll get when we get there, it's going to be probably a long episode or a long couple episodes. We don't know what he ends ultimately decides. His fate's not written, and Jesus says that the way is not shut for him. It is just difficult, and it requires humility, which didn't sound like he had gotten there yet. But we don't know how things ended for him. 14, blessed and favored by God is the man who fears sin and its consequences at all times. But he who hardens his heart and is determined to sin will fall into disaster. Very much. This is one we've seen throughout our reviews going through the Old Testament. How often is the obedient man, the humble man who listens to God rewarded, or woman, actually? I mean, we talk about Mordecai and Esther. We talk about Ruth, Deborah. We talk about David, Abraham, Jacob with all, with kind of his kind of a not the most trustworthy person that you find in Jacob, but what you find is an obedient man to God. Man who took that of all the things that maybe he didn't take seriously, he took God seriously. He who hardens his heart and is determined to sin will fall into disaster. Saul, Pharaoh, what happened with them? Ahab. Here we go. Last one for tonight. We'll wrap up. Like a roaring lion and a charging bear is a wicked ruler over a poor people. Scary. Dangerous. I mean, we've had some bad rulers, and we've probably had some politicians in the presidency and in federal seats like the Senate and Congress or the Supreme Court who have had really wicked souls. But it can get worse. It really can get worse. But a lot of times those folks can make society dangerous without you even really understanding it. And them are, of course, they're all lawyers. No, 2020 to 2024 was elderly abuse, plain and simple, from the very beginning. I'm going to say it, and I don't care. Biden had dementia, and they knew he had dementia when he was running. Before he was the nominee, they knew he had dementia. There were people who knew. And then when he got to the presidency, everybody knew, and nobody wanted to see it. And I say that but I will say I didn't feel sorry for him, because I know that if somebody had told him, if you'd have come up to Biden 20 years ago and said, I will guarantee you the presidency, but you are going to be senile when you get there, and you're going to be a puppet, and you're not going to have much of any dignity, that he would have said, yep, sign me up. Don't care. Treat me however you want. All I care about is the legacy. All I care about is to go down in history. That's all some people want. That's why I don't trust them. Everybody is a Fed. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, Manuel. Real shady stuff happened in the background that still pushed him in. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And like I said, he would have been, even if he was coherent, he would have been okay with that. And yeah, Alias, perhaps that did happen. But I'm not going to throw around accusations I don't know. Anyway. All right. So that's our show for tonight. Big crowd. Seen 11, 12. Usually we don't get more. Like I said, we normally don't get bigger than 10. Had 56 views on a Bible reading, one of my episodes. That's pretty big. That's big for me. I like that. Usually in the 40s is a really good night. We were up at 50 last time I checked, 52 views. Thank you guys. Emmanuel, Alias, MR, Matt Felty, Jenny, Emmanuel. Did I already say Emmanuel? I might have said Emmanuel already. Veritex. I want to make sure I name all you guys. I'm naming names. Thad the man. Somebody find Lucifer Evenstar and get him back in here. Alex. I just don't know what happened to him. Nernaeth. I miss him teasing me. That's chat. You guys are awesome. Wouldn't be a nightly show without you guys. Said it before. Me and my wife and I had talked about making this a once a week show or something like that. Maybe put a little bit more time for a lot less content, but a longer, more curated episode. But I really like the live stream. But if nobody was here, there wasn't any sense of me doing it live. But you guys show up. Once you guys started showing up, that was all she wrote. Wasn't going to change me then at that point. And so now we get a whenever I can stream Monday through Thursday. But I love seeing you guys, and thank you guys for making this show what it is. To everybody who is just listening, I want you to comment. I'll always encourage you to comment, but I understand maybe you can't, maybe you won't. And that's fine. Still glad that you can find you've found a place that you can keep coming back to and that you enjoy. To everybody who's catching me on replay, thank you for watching. Sorry I missed you. Hope to catch you live sometime soon. Everybody have a good night, and God bless.